In 2002, at our Grand Mukherjee mansion, Bablu vanished without a trace. That night, as I lay in bed, a sinister whisper promised to return something we never wanted back. What happened next defies belief and haunts me to this day. Stay tuned to uncover the chilling truth. In the winter of 2002, when I was just 11, I looked forward to the annual Mukherjee family gathering at our ancestral mansion, the Rajbari, on the outskirts of Kolkata. My name is Priyanshu Mukherjee, but everyone calls me Apu. This is my story, a story of cricket, cousins, and a spine-chilling encounter that none of us will ever forget. I lived in Mumbai with my parents, but every year we made the trip to Kolkata. It was a time of joy and laughter, a time to catch up with family, indulge in delicious Bengali cuisine, and for us kids to create memories of mischief and fun. My cousins and I were inseparable during these gatherings. There was Joydev, or Ronnie as we called him, a 10-year-old cricket enthusiast who lived in Delhi. Then there was Abhijit, known as Jojo, also 10 and residing in Mumbai like me. Jojo was the timid one, always with his nose in a comic book and his specs perched on his nose. And then there was Bablu, the son of our house help Bhola. Bablu, also 11, was the life of our little gang. Mischievous and daring, he was my partner in crime, and we both especially loved climbing trees and playing cricket. Although Bablu's family circumstances were different from ours, he was no less a part of our group. Every year, the four of us looked forward to these holidays more than anything else. Our family's mansion, the Mukherjee mansion, was a colossal structure spread across 20 acres with lush orchards and expansive paddy fields surrounding it. It was a child's paradise, especially for boys like us who were always ready for some adventure. The mansion was filled with joyous cacophony of relatives catching up, gossiping, and savoring mouth-watering Bengali delicacies. For us kids, the highlight was the freedom to explore and the endless cricket matches we played in the compound. However, there was one rule we were all sternly warned about. Never, ever cross the wall of the compound, especially after 6 p.m. Beyond the wall lay an eerie hut, the stuff local legends are made of. They said an old witch lived there, a woman who practiced dark magic and human sacrifices. The adults, of course, shrugged it off as superstition, but for us kids, tales were enough to keep us wary. Despite the warnings, our curiosity was often piqued by the mysterious hut and its creepy scarecrow. The scarecrow, with its tattered green pants and red shirt, seemed to watch us with an unnerving presence. Yet, we usually pushed these thoughts aside in favor of our cricket games and the joy of being together. This particular winter, however, was different. It was a year when our playful mischief crossed the line into a realm of the unknown. It was the year when Bablu disappeared. Little did we know that this gathering would be etched in our memories forever, not for the joyous moments, but for the terror that would follow. Every year, the Rajbari echoed with our laughter and shouts as we played cricket in the small patch of barren land within the compound. We could spend hours perfecting our shots and arguing over scores and celebrating our victories. It was our own little world, far removed from the boring adult conversations happening inside the mansion. But on the final day of our vacation that year, something happened that none of us were prepared for. The sun was setting and a chill began to settle in the air. Our parents had always told us to stop playing and come inside before it gets too dark, especially after 6 p.m. But that evening, we were so engrossed in our game that we lost track of time. Ronnie, who was quite skilled with the bat, struck the ball with a satisfying crack, sending it soaring above the wall into the forbidden territory beyond the compound. Jojo, who was always the cautious one, glanced nervously at the dark sky and said, "Guys, it's getting late. We should really go back. Our parents will get angry," he urged, his voice trembling slightly. But neither Bablu nor I wanted to end the game on that note. Cricket balls were precious back then, and losing one was not an option. "I'll go get it," I volunteered, feeling a mix of determination and the thrill of breaking a rule. But as I approached the wall, my foot slipped and I fell hard, scraping my knee. Ronnie and Jojo rushed to my side, their faces pale with fear. It was getting darker, and the shadows seemed to grow longer and more menacing. "Let's go inside," Ronnie suggested, helping me up. But Bablu, always the brave one, shook his head. "Don't worry, guys. I'll get the ball. You just wait here," he said in his steady and confident voice. With that, he climbed the wall and suddenly disappeared into darkness. We waited anxiously, the silence around us growing heavier by the minute. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the stillness. "Ah!" It was Bablu. My heart pounded as I ran to the small hole in the wall to look through. And what I saw on the other side made my blood run cold. Instead of Bablu, I could see a blurry figure of a woman in a white sari with hair all the way to her feet. Was that actually the witch? I thought to myself. My heart was pounding so hard that I thought it would burst out of my chest any moment. Ronnie and Jojo huddled close, their faces pale with fear and confusion. "What did you see, Apu?" Ronnie whispered, his voice trembling. I'm not sure," I stammered, my voice barely audible. "It's too dark, but I saw something. Someone in a white sari." "Quick, we have to tell the adults," Jojo finally said, in his voice filled with a mix of fear and urgency. We turned and sprinted back to the mansion, our feet barely touching the ground. The house, which had been filled with laughter and chatter just moments ago, now seemed ominously quiet. We burst into the living room where our parents and relatives were gathered and breathlessly recounted what had happened. "Bablu's missing. He went to get the ball across the compound, and then we heard him scream," I exclaimed, tears streaming down my face. Bhola, Bablu's father, was the first to react. His face had turned pale, and he immediately called for help. Several of the male workers in the mansion and some of our uncles grabbed flashlights and sticks and jumped across the wall, ready to search the area. "You guys stay inside and lock the doors," Bhola instructed us firmly. "We will find Bablu." We watched from the window as the search party headed out, their flashlights flickering like fireflies in the dark. Soon a couple of police constables had also joined the search, after getting to know of Bablu's disappearance. The tension in the room was clearly visible. The younger children were scared and crying, while the adults tried comforting them. My mind was racing with 100 thoughts. What had happened to Bablu? Was he hurt? And was that old witch real? Minutes turned into hours, and still there was no sign of Bablu. The search party returned, looking defeated and extremely worried. Bola's eyes were filled with despair, and he spoke to my father in hushed tones. He tried reassuring us, but his voice lacked any sort of conviction. My father said they couldn't find him. The workers and the police will continue the search in the morning. That night, the atmosphere in the mansion was thick with the tension and unease. We all tried to sleep, but the recent events weighed heavily on our minds. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, the fear and worry about Bablu troubling me all the time. The room was dimly lit by a small night lamp, causing long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Around midnight, I was jolted awake by a strange, persistent whispering. At first, I thought it was a dream, but then I realized the sound was coming from the window. My heart started pounding as I strained to listen. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, mingling with the sound of the wind banging the windowed shutters. "Apu, Apu, do you want your ball back? The voice was eerie, hollow, and filled with a sinister glee. I sat up in bed instantly, my eyes wide with terror. I wanted to call out for my mother and wake up everyone in the room, but my voice got caught in my throat. But somehow, gathering all my courage, I slowly turned my head towards the window. My blood ran cold as I saw a figure clinging to the window's iron guardrails. A woman, her face twisted with an evil smile, her eyes gleaming in the darkness. She was dressed in a white sari, her long hair flowing down to her feet, and her fingers ending in sharp, dirty, piercing nails. On seeing her, I screamed as loud as I could, finally finding my voice. The room erupted in chaos as my cousins woke up, startled and scared. My mother and the other relatives rushed into the room trying to calm us down. I pointed to the window, trembling and barely being able to speak. She's there, I stammered. But when the adults looked, the woman was gone. Their window was shut tight, and there was no sign of anyone outside. My father and uncles went outside with flashlights and searched the backyard as well, but they found nothing. The eerie presence had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. My mother held me close, trying to reassure me. It was probably just a bad dream, Apu. You're safe now. But I knew what I had seen. The witch was real, and she had come for us. The night passed slowly, with the adults keeping a vigilant watch. None of us kids could sleep after that, haunted by the fear of the witch returning. The next morning, a tense silence hung over the mansion. We were all on the edge, the memory of the previous night's terror still fresh in our minds. My parents decided it was best for us to leave as we had planned on that day, hoping a return back to Mumbai would bring in a normal routine and somehow make us forget this evil nightmare. As we packed our bags, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I went to my bed and just then froze in shock. There under my pillow was the missing cricket ball, the very one that led to Bablu's disappearance. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The ball was unmistakable, with the same marks and stitching. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of it. I rushed to my mom and told her, Mom, look. It's the same ball. Apu, there's no need to worry. It's just a cricket ball. Maybe it just got mixed up with your things. But Mom, how did it get here? Sometimes things move around, Apu, she said, patting my head. It's probably just a coincidence. Don't let it scare you any more than you already are. I had no option but to nod and agree with her, but deep down, I knew this was no coincidence. The ball's appearance was a sign, one that filled me with dread. As we prepped to leave the Rajbari, the morning was shrouded in a thick fog, the mansion barely visible through the mist. My parents were busy saying their final goodbyes to the relatives and trying to figure out what would happen next with Bablu's disappearance. But I couldn't shake the lingering sense of horror. My mind kept returning to the evil witch and Bablu's eerie disappearance. Just before we were about to drive away, I mustered up all my courage and decided to take one last look. I quickly slipped away from the car and headed towards the old brick wall that separated the mansion from the field. The hole in the wall where we used to peek through during our games seemed larger and more ominous in the misty light. With trembling hands, I leaned forward and peered through the hole. The field was enveloped in a ghostly fog, everything eerily still. And just then, my eyes slowly moved to the scarecrow, standing motionless in the middle of the field. My breath got caught in my throat because the scarecrow wasn't just a figure made of straw and clothes anymore. It now looked disturbingly human. Its head previously was made out of a burlap sack. It seemed to be looking more and more like a human with a ghostly face and sunken eyes and a twisted smile. But the most horrifying detail was its clothes. The scarecrow was wearing Bablu's exact outfit, the same shirt, the same shorts, and even the same pair of shoes. I stumbled back and almost fell back with fear. My heart was pounding in my chest, and that's when the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The scarecrow was actually Bablu. The witch had taken him and transformed him into a ghastly figure as a cruel reminder of her evil power. I quickly ran away from there with all my life, and I jumped into the car and never felt safer sitting inside my car. I wanted to shout, to tell everyone what I had seen, but my voice was lost. I took one last look at that mansion before my parents drove away. Tears filled my eyes as our car moved ahead. My parents noticed my pale face and trembling hands, but attributed it to the lingering fear from the previous night. As we drove away, the fog seemed to close in around us, mansion and its secrets fading into the mist, leaving me with a chilling and unresolved mystery that would haunt me forever.